Good morning. This is Ron. It is Friday, February the 16th. Welcome to Story Time. And this is the a Story Time Extra. And this is about the shooting that happened, I believe it was the day before yesterday, in Florida, where 17 people were killed by an individual named Mr. Cruz. And what I wanted to discuss was it seems for a lot of people the issue is that the solution is to problems such as the shooting at this particular school are political, and that it's the politicians that are going to have to get their minds right in order to solve the problem. But it isn't. It's not a political issue. It's more of a cultural issue, and there are things that you and I can do to affect change, to reduce the likelihood, if not eliminate, but reduce the likelihood that this kind of slaughter will happen again. And there was a lady that was on the radio yesterday that was complaining and talking about, complaining that the President Trump wasn't doing enough, that he could have metal detectors installed everywhere. That you go to court and there's metal detectors because they're going to protect the judges and lawyers, but we don't do the same thing in schools to protect our um, children. So, good point on the metal detector issue, but a bad point from the standpoint of expecting the federal government, and particularly the President of the United States, to do it. The President of the United States is just that, president. He presides. He's not a ruler. He is not a king. He does not get to rule by decree. You just wave his hand and say, let there be metal detectors in all the schools in the country, and it happens. It doesn't work that way. This is a constitutional republic, and the people have to be consulted, whether she likes it or not, for one thing. But the idea that, again, in this particular case, the problems were flagrant and egregious, ridiculously so, because like in other shootings, mass shootings, or unlike in other mass shootings, in this particular case, they knew who the assailant was. They knew about his proclivity towards violence, his desire to be violent. Not only did the school know about it, apparently the sheriff's department knew about it, and so did the FBI. So everybody knew about it. And it's, at first, one of the first things that could and should happen is everybody should get sued for this one. 17 children died needlessly because the school refused to take proper precautions. The sheriff's department refused to take proper precautions, and the FBI didn't. They all failed to do their jobs to protect these children. They should all be sued. And it goes back again to some of the basic things, which is we don't need President so and so, we don't need Governor so and so, we don't need the city council to do things. All we need is to have basic responsible security. Were there any security guards at the school? No. Again, metal detectors. Were there metal detectors? Was there a fence? Was there any way of keeping people out of the school? If not, why not? And when I used to work at a place called Los Angeles Job Corps, which was a vocational school for students from 16 to 24 years old, and we had a campus that was, um, at least at the main campus, where you had doors that locked automatically. The only way to get into the building was with an identification card. You would swipe it at the door. It would make the door either buzz or click, and then you could gain access. If you didn't have that, there was a security guard desk right there that was manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you would simply get on the intercom or whatever. They'd see you through this big glass door, and they would go ahead and buzz you in. And then you go to the security guard, and if you're a student, then you try to explain why it is you don't have your ID. But if you're a visitor, then you have to sign in and go through certain other procedures and protocols. So this was a campus where every building had at least one security guard in it, so that if there was problems, if uh, somebody was trying to gain access to the building that shouldn't be, there was somebody there to try to prevent it, or in the case where they cannot prevent it, then call for assistance, perhaps get the police involved, etc. And it's just somebody also where that can sound the alarm. And which brings me to my second point. The other thing that a lot of schools could do, we used to, when I was growing up, we had different alarms. We had a fire alarm, and we had also alarms for nuclear weapons. We had, well, at least those two. And so the alarms for each were different. And the responses, depending on which alarm went off, were also different. If you got a fire alarm, then everybody was supposed to line up and go. The teacher would lead you out of the school and to a designated assembly point. If it was the nuclear weapon alarm, then you had to either get up against the walls, away from the windows, or duck and cover underneath your desks. So the same thing could be happening with not only schools, but government office buildings and various other office buildings around the country could have two sets of alarms. One for fire department, a fire happens and you pull the fire alarm. The other one for an active or shooter situation. You have somebody that's about to come onto campus or come into an office building, they're armed. You can sound this alarm, and which will notify people to lock the doors, stay in place, lock all your doors, and stay where you are. Get under the desks or whatever you need to do. But that way, people are prepared. And again, these shooters are going to have a much rougher time finding victims. So the one of the things then it gets back to the issue of what can you and I do as individuals, because that's a good idea for the the school system in Florida, but unfortunately the time has passed for that. Well, I mean they can still do it, but unfortunately time has passed for the 17 victims in that school system. But what you and I can do is you look around. Do you have a school in your area, in your neighborhood, or in your city? Probably have at least one school. And when you go by there, does it look like it's secure? Is there a fence? Are there security guards? When I went yesterday to a studio in Los Angeles called Los Angeles Central Studio, and it's downtown, and I went there for to get a fitting for a part I'm going to be playing next week. And I went in there. There's a security guard. There's fences. There's locked doors. It's locked down like better than a bank. And all it is studios, place where they shoot films. Why is it that all the schools, that at least the ones I see, are wide open? My alma mater, South Pasadena High School. I drive by there. They do have gates and fences to some degree that are closed when the school is out on weekends and holidays. When school is in session, all that's open. There's no security guards to be seen. There are no other security features to be seen. Nothing to prevent somebody from just walking onto campus with a gun or bombs or whatever and creating a lot of mayhem. There isn't any. So in that particular situation, one of the things that you can do is call the school or the school district and ask them, why is that? Why haven't you done that? When are you going to do that? The other question is, when you go into government buildings, when you go into restaurants, or when you go into Starbucks, or you go into places like that, is there some sort of security? And if there isn't, you don't have a security guard there, then it's again contact Starbucks, contact if it's a federal building of some sort, contact whoever it is that's in charge of that building and ask them why not, how come, or go to your congressperson if it's a federal building or a state building. Go to your representatives and ask them and demand there should be security there. There should be some type of security in the situation, so that if again there's an active shooter situation, we the public are going to be better protected um, against that. A lot of the well, I'm going to go out and say most of the shootings that I'm aware of, the shooters didn't even try to disguise themselves or disguise the fact that they were carrying weapons. They very often stood out because they were wearing all black. They were carrying rifles. Not even, and apparently the individual in Florida, Mr. Cruz, was carrying an AR-15, a rifle, not a handgun that he snuck in his pocket, but a rifle, and just walked onto campus and was very calmly loading it, I understand, and told another student who I guess got real lucky. He told the student, "You better get out of here because it's going to get messy really soon." And then that student went and told the gym teacher, I think he was a gym teacher, that eventually lost his life because he was shielding other students from the rounds that were being shot off by this individual. So, but again, why, you and I can go and do those kinds of things, pick up the phone and call when we see places that could be high target areas. Banks. I mean, banks are usually fairly well secured. I'm thinking of one now that I don't remember seeing a security guard in. There's another one I know that where the security guard, they're at the door. They have a sign on the door that you're not allowed to wear a hat or sunglasses in the bank. You have to, if you're wearing those things, you have to take them off before you go into the bank. So that's a bank with some better security. And that's another thing you can do. If you're doing business with places or frequenting places that are not secure, find another place to go that is secure. Deny those insecure places your business. And um, if I think we do that as individuals, sound the alarm, call people and say, hey, why isn't there better security? Why don't you have a security guard? Why don't you have a camera system? Why don't you have locked doors? Why don't you have a fence or a gate? Then I think that it will go a long way to reducing the number of incidents of active shooter incidents that we've had in this country. So tomorrow, another episode of Story Time, and I'm not sure what I'm going to be reading yet, but we will find out tomorrow. But until then, thank you very much for joining me, and have a great day.